You are now live.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to begin today's meeting by acknowledging we're gathered here today on the traditional lands of the Coast Salish people. With quorum being present, I'd like to call this meeting to order. The first item on the agenda is approval of the consent agenda. I'd like to ask if any members of council would like to pull any of these items for discussion under new business. And I see Councillor Justice and Councillor Manas both have their hands up. Councillor Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to pull 2.2.5 and 2.2.7.
All right, we pulled 2.2.5, 2.2.7. Councillor Manhas, your hand went up as well.
Mr. Mayor, Council Justice pulled 2.2.5 already, so it's good.
Okay, thanks. I'd like to pull 2.2.6 to move that under new business as well. All right, could I get a motion to adopt the consent agenda as amended? Moved by Councillor Finley, seconded by Councillor Estache. Any discussion? Oh, no question. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. We now move on to approval of the regular agenda. Could I get a motion to adopt the agenda as circulated, or I guess as amended with the new business changes? Moved by Councillor Toporowski, seconded by Councillor Manhas. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor? And opposed? Motion carries. We'll now move on to the mayor's report. As I shared in our last council meeting, and I know we've discussed as a council numerous times, part of our role, especially in my case in the position of mayor, involves advocating to the senior levels of government for changes in policy and new funding and resources to address the major challenges we're facing at the local level. During these past couple of weeks, I've had a chance to meet with both the Minister of Environment and Climate Change and also the Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure to discuss some of the priorities at North Cowichan and how these align with provincial goals. With the Honourable George Heyman, Minister of Environment and Climate Change, we provided an overview of the current water quality issues with Cowichan Lake and the work our municipality has undertaken in response. I want to thank our environmental specialist, Dr. David Preekshot, for doing a great job in briefing the Minister on this topic. We stressed the Minister the need for provincial funding to undertake aeration, similar to what was done in Elk Lake. And while we weren't able to secure a funding commitment in this particular meeting, the Minister did direct us to continue conversations with his staff on possible solutions. Our Nanaimo North Cowichan MLA, Doug Routley, who is involved in preparing the setting up the meeting, has been advocating for us on this issue, and we will continue to work with his office and advancing solutions to this problem. In our meeting with the Environment Minister, we also highlighted some of our initiatives here at the municipality, including the Climate Action and Energy Plan and also the Biodiversity Protection Policy under development, and how we saw real alignment with some of the provincial goals and expressed our willingness to work with the province on advancing some of our shared priorities. Earlier this week, I joined Councillor Toporowski and senior staff for a meeting with the Honourable Rob Fleming, our Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure at the provincial level. We discussed the urgency of replacing the BC Ferries terminal in Crofton and the lack of action on this project over the last 3.5 years. The Minister committed to getting me a meeting with the new BC Ferries CEO as soon as possible, discuss how we can move forward with this project. We also discussed the municipality's focus on encouraging more active transportation through our Master Transportation Plan that we presented to Council for adoption this fall. I took this opportunity to highlight our desire to build a multi-use pathway for pedestrians and cyclists connecting the University Village area to the Bell-McKinnon corridor. Fortunately for us, the province just last week opened a new active transportation grant program, and the Minister has advised that his staff can work with us on preparing a funding application. Finally, we provided the Minister with an overview of our plans for infrastructure upgrades in the Bell-McKinnon corridor to support a phased development of the local area plan and the growth anticipated in the area surrounding the new hospital south of Herd Road. We stressed the Minister the value in having a provincial infrastructure program that can support future housing development across the province and in communities. As part of my mayor's report today, I'd also like to take an opportunity to highlight the Our Cowichan Communities Health Network survey that they are currently undertaking in partnership with Island Health. which is intended to capture local data on the health and well-being of Cowichan Valley residents to help shape regional programs, services, and policies. Survey participants are in the survey are asked about their overall health and life in the Cowichan Valley and for feedback on their access to local health and community services. Our Cowichan Communities Health Network hopes to recruit 4,500 Cowichan Valley residents ages 18 and older to complete the survey. This high-level participation will help generate the quality data that is needed to respond to demographic shifts and changing health and community needs. To date, a total of 477 North Cowichan residents have responded to the survey. However, our Cowichan indicates this is under half of their target of 974 responses, which they're hoping to reach before the survey closes. I'd encourage all members of council and any North Cowichan residents present today or tuning in online to complete the survey to ensure that we're able to get a representative sample from North Cowichan residents and the broader community. Finally, I wanted to highlight for council the healthcare system support playbook that I've recently become familiar with. As many of you know, across BC and here in the Cowichan Valley, we're facing challenges with a lack of family physicians, which could get worse over the coming years with expected retirements. At the Cowichan Valley Regional District Board, we recently met with a group of local family physicians who are exploring possible solutions to this very real problem, including the possibility of a community health clinic similar to what's been adopted in other communities across the island of BC. In addition, I recently met with Dave Saunders, former mayor of Colwood, who is currently with the Saunders Foundation. This foundation is working in partnership with the Ministry of Health on the healthcare system support playbook, which is a roadmap for local communities to support their healthcare and emergency personnel. The playbook includes an entire section on the role of local governments, which may be helpful to our municipality, especially as we look for ways to support specialty medical services on land surrounding the new regional hospital, which I think as everyone knows is part of our current strategic plan. Once the playbook is finalized, I'd be happy to share a copy with council and our staff for our future consideration. And that concludes my mayor's report. All right, so we can now move on to delegations. We have one delegation for today's meeting from the Cowichan Climate Hub with regards to indoor air quality health risks. I believe Jane Kilthey will be presenting and Valerie Russell on behalf of the Climate Hub. Ms. Kilthey, if you could confirm, my understanding is that Dr. Waters won't be able to make the...
Yes, and she has given me her material.
Great, thank you. And Ms. Kilthey, we've got a 10-minute allotted for our delegations.
That's right?
Yeah, or 10 minutes total.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I mean.
And then as much time after for questions from council.
So is this on? Yeah. So, you don't have to stand here for 5 minutes if you don't want to.
Okay, I'll just have to have a quick changeover.
Okay, my name is Jane Kilthey, and I live in Cowichan Bay. Mayor Douglas, members of council, thank you for this opportunity. We're here on behalf of the Cowichan Climate Hub, a collaboration of local nonprofits, faith groups, farmers, fishers, small businessmen, and others. And as a midwife working in maternal health for 32 years, I'm pleased to be allowed to bring forward concerns from Regional Health Officer Dr. Shannon Waters, who can't join us today, on the health risks of methane gas, aka natural gas. There's increasing evidence that fossil gas consistently leaks into the indoor air of homes heating or cooking with gas and poses risks to those living there, especially children. Nitrous dioxide, co-emitted with methane, increases the risk of childhood asthma. 41 studies showed children living in homes with gas stoves had a 24% higher risk of lifetime asthma, a 42% increased risk of having asthma currently as a child in the home. In a recent study on gas stove emissions, the carcinogen benzene associated with increased risks of childhood leukemia was found migrating throughout homes beyond the kitchen, elevating bedroom benzene concentrations above chronic health benchmarks for hours after the stove was turned off. Gas combustion from stoves is also linked to indoor carbon monoxide and formaldehyde. These risks alone make it worth considering stopping building homes with gas. In this time of both health and climate risks, heat waves, droughts, forest fires, storms, and floods, BC's new zero carbon step code offers local governments the opportunity to significantly reduce their community's greenhouse gas emissions with bylaws requiring decarbonization and electrification of new residential and commercial buildings. Buildings in North American cities and towns generate 40% of those communities' annual CO2 and methane emissions. Methane is over 80 times more potent than CO2 across a 20-year period, resulting in the most severe and immediate climate impacts, driving temperatures higher, faster, and accelerating damage caused by a destabilizing climate. Most urban methane emissions come from space and water heating using fossil gas and from gas stoves and fireplaces, and gas continues to expand in new construction. May 1st, the BC government gave local governments the tools you need to reduce emissions in new buildings, the Zero Carbon Step Code. The code empowers you to pass bylaws requiring new buildings to be fully powered by electricity. At Nanaimo Council last week, BC Hydro reported that they have the capacity for the full electrification of new buildings now. The City of Victoria and the District Municipality of Saanich have enacted already Level 4 zero carbon bylaws for new builds, both for Group C up to 6 stories and Group D and E for buildings over 6 stories and commercial buildings. Nanaimo committed to adopting a similar bylaw before July 1st, 2024. In Nanaimo's consultations, local builders told them complying with the highest level of the Zero Carbon Step Code is very doable. Local builders said that it was more straightforward than complying with the higher levels of the BC Energy Step Code, and that zero carbon is what people are telling them they want in new homes. Given we live in the land of trees falling on power lines, the Zero Carbon Code also allows energy-efficient wood stoves and gas fireplace for backup during power outages. An added benefit of electrification is electric heat pumps provide both heating and cooling, something fossil gas can't provide, at 2/3 the cost of baseboard heating. Cooling is critical with our longer, hotter heat waves to reduce heat risks. As extreme heat becomes more common and intense, many people, like me, are choosing to install heat pumps in their current homes. With a heat pump, we're more comfortable now, and our hydro costs went down. By requiring new buildings to be zero carbon, we will save money, be healthier, and reduce emissions. Across BC, as you know, we continue to see large active wildfires, towns burned, ecosystems destroyed, smoke-filled skies, and lack of rain and dry forests and soils increase fire risk, challenging farmers, and leaving our watersheds with flows low enough and waters warm enough to stress our salmon. Add the evidence of serious health risks for those living or working in indoor spaces with methane gas, and it's all connected. We ask Council to create bylaws to decarbonize new buildings. The bylaw-making powers are yours. Thank you.
Thank you.
Honorable Mayor and Council, my name is Valerie Russell and I live on Pacific Drive in Maple Bay. Climate change is happening, and it's happening faster than we were hoping it would. It's no longer our grandchildren's problem. Though I live in Maple Bay, I'm also a graduate student at UBC in the Faculty of Forestry, Department of Forest and Conservation Sciences. In all of my research and in speaking to countless scientists, I have learned of their fear for our future. It is palpable. And yet they continue on doing what they can to make our future just that little bit less painful as we sit and watch over 2.25 million hectares of our beautiful province burn in the province's worst wildfire season in recorded history. As a whole, BC has become warmer and wetter over the last century. We are experiencing more extreme rainfall events and drier conditions. Less rain will fall as snow, leading to a decrease in our snowpacks. And our river ecosystems rely on these snowpacks to sustain them through the summer. We can see the effects of the warming planet in our valley that we call home. The rainfall patterns are changing and the temperatures are rising, increasing our risk of wildfires and killing our salmon. We have a great location for farming and raising our own food, but we are at the mercy of one bad summer hailstorm, heat dome, wildfire, or drought, and we can lose it all. We all need to do our part to transition to the lower carbon future that is needed, that is required for us to be able to enjoy this valley as people have done for millennia. There are many ways that we can mitigate these upcoming changes. We are here today to speak to you about one way that we can help. Overall, 80% of greenhouse gas emissions in the last decade come from the extraction, transportation, and burning of gas and oil. But let's focus on one particularly bad fossil fuel, methane. Methane, for the largest part, is the result of fracking. It comes from the northeast corner of the province and is piped here. Also known as natural gas, it's a carbon-intensive fossil fuel. It's a powerful greenhouse gas, many times worse than carbon dioxide. A little goes a long way to heating the planet. It is an energy-intensive process to extract it from the ground and ship it to our doors, where much is lost due to leakage. And it is a water-intensive process when we are heading into a time period of increasing summer droughts. Buildings in North America produce over 40% of the annual carbon dioxide and methane emissions, as you've already heard here today. We use it in our gas stoves, fireplaces, heat our homes. We bring it into the valley and let it escape into the air, into our very homes where it's affecting the lives of our residents. In 2021, our province released the Clean BC Roadmap to 2030 to help guide us to a cleaner future. And this year, on May 1st, they adopted the Zero Carbon Step Code, giving local governments the power to pass bylaws restricting the use of fossil fuels in new buildings. So our ask is the following. Given the increasing climate impacts we see around us and the evidence of serious health risks, especially to children, posed by living or working in indoor spaces heated by natural gas, we ask North Cowichan Council to move forward on a zero-carbon bylaw for new buildings at Level 4, EL4, of BC's new Zero Carbon Step Code. Specifically, we are asking North Cowichan Council to establish a bylaw where all building permits submitted for residential Group C up to 6-story on or after September 1st, 2024, are required to meet BC Zero Carbon Step Code 4, all electrification, and all building permits submitted for residential buildings over 6 stories and commercial buildings, Group D and E, on or after January 1st, 2025, be required to meet these same requirements, following in the footsteps of the City of Victoria and the Municipality of Saanich, which adopted these zero-carbon bylaws for new construction in July this year, and the Nanaimo City Council, which last week committed to implement the same bylaws as of July 2024. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Russell and Ms. Kilthey. Yeah, appreciate the request, although I will stress that our practice here at council is we typically don't make a decision related to a delegation at the same meeting. So, Councillor Justice, I'll turn it to you for the first question.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to thank you both for coming and speaking to us tonight. You may know that staff, you may not know that staff is preparing a presentation for council on the Zero Carbon Step Code. And, I was actually more or less expecting it, I don't know, during the summer or perhaps even at this meeting, but it's not here. I wonder, not a question for you, but maybe Mr. Farkas could help me. Do we have any, do you have an update on when we might see that presentation on the Zero Carbon Step Code?
We're expecting to bring a staff report forward at the end of September or perhaps early October at the latest.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions from council? Councillor Manhouse?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you both for your presentations. So I have a few questions for you guys. Thank you for presentations. So, I'm assuming both of you guys have heat pumps. And what's your secondary use of, secondary heating right now? Do you have a secondary source of heat? You're electric, and Ms. Russell?
This is on. We're all electric
Okay.
in our house.
Electric.
Okay. How much greenhouse gas is emitted in North Cowichan on an annual basis? Do you have any idea?
I'm not very good at remembering the numbers. I have read your regular annual report on greenhouse gases, but I would refer you to your own report. Sorry.
Yeah, don't expect you to know that information, Ms. Kelton. It is included in our climate action
Yeah, I-
energy
Yeah.
update.
I
And-
know, I just thought because they brought this forward that they would have done their research.
As I say, I don't,
Yes, okay.
I'm not gonna guarantee I could quote the numbers, but we did get a
Understand.
report about the use of gas in this building and all other buildings. I don't happen to have it with me, but we
Understandable.
can follow up, yeah.
Understandable, thank you. What impact in real numbers will this action that you propose have on GHGs in North Cowichan?
Well, if you look at the average city or town, 40% of the greenhouse gases emitted by cities and towns are from the built environment, that it depends on how rapidly you're building out new houses. It'll be an incremental process, but over time, it will have a dramatic impact. If you could answer the question of how many houses, new houses are built every year, which was a question that came up at Nanaimo last week, then I can probably do some calculations.
I think we can do that, I think we can do that calculation.
Yeah,
also.
yeah.
What impact will this have on global emissions? I don't think it'll have much because we don't emit overall in the whole scope of things. Our
Well,
GHG emissions are very, very small.
if you look at what's happening now, in that whole states in the US, California, Washington, New York, are getting gas out of the built environment there. It's happening in European countries. It's happening across Canada. Vancouver was a leader in this move before there was the zero carbon step code. If you look at that, there's 40% of greenhouse gas emissions coming from cities all over the globe, and that number is global. If the movement of this could be quite dramatic.
Let's back on a couple more quick ones.
Go for it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for that answer. Because I see China is building coal plants regularly. I just came back from India. I went to India end of March. I was there for 2.5 weeks, end of March to early April. And the greenhouse, nobody really cares about the greenhouse gas emissions there. I think what you guys should do is actually target those countries that need the help, that need the education, rather than where we're doing things pretty good here. And we could be better, but we're doing pretty good. But I think you have larger impact if your organizations, the climate organizations, actually go and work with those countries. They're the largest polluters of GHGs.
And what the research says around global change is some of the fastest, most effective change happens at the local level.
Yeah, but it's not happening in India, and they got the population.
Well, what I can say is it's up to you. You've been given the tools. I hope you have a really close look at them.
Yeah, we just say the GHGs are, they don't stop at borders. They don't stop in India. This,
Right.
Right. So
And
that's
we've
why
got
we should
ours
be-
here that we need to take care of. Thank
Yeah,
you.
And I personally think we're doing a pretty good job with that. And you mentioned in your presentation just now that in Nanaimo, BC Hydro said in Nanaimo last week that they have enough electricity for new builds now. Is that the current builds now, or is that?
No,
future
they have,
builds?
they said they have enough electricity that they have no worries about municipalities taking up the zero carbon bylaw at level 4, the highest level, and having enough electricity for that. They're required as a public corporation to have at least 12% surplus of what their projected use is, And they told Nanaimo Council that they were in good shape and that the capacity for renewables hasn't yet been exploited in the way that it could in British Columbia. That's what they said.
Okay, thanks. And one last one, Mr. Mayor.
Someone before him.
Yeah, I just want to say the forest fires and stuff, most of the forest fires on Vancouver Island were actually human caused. They weren't caused they were exacerbated by the dryness and the climate change, but they were caused, the majority on Vancouver Island were human caused. So I just want to make that.
There's always multiple causes. Human beings and the sparks from their cars or their campfires or whatever are often the immediate cause, but the dryness and the extent of the forest, they've done calculations on the percentage of that climate impacts have on that, and we're in double-digit numbers on that for sure.
Yeah, but just when they were originally caused by majority on Vancouver Island.
It's a complex system.
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
but they were human caused, most on Vancouver Island.
I've got Councillor Finley, then Councillor Stash.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You said there's a list of 20 groups that make up the Cowichan Climate Hub.
Were you going to ask me to remember them all?
Yep.
I didn't bring my list. We've got 3 United Churches. We've got 6 or 8 nonprofit groups, both social benefit nonprofits and environmental nonprofits. We've got 4 or 5 farmers, a community supported fisheries business. And I can send you a list.
That'd be
I
great.
just didn't bring it with me.
Sure.
Yeah.
And of those 20 groups, they all are of the same opinion. They back this
Yes.
statement you've made.
Yeah, because we have a theory of change and a set of purposes that this fits very neatly into.
Okay, thank you
They're
for
all
that.
concerned about the climate crisis.
Okay, just a couple more, Mr. Mayor, if that's fine. In this coming up, I put a poll on several neighborhood groups on Facebook last night because I wanted to get the community's understanding of where they are and what they believe as far as what the best use or what the best decision that North Cowichan should make regarding gas. And the response was quite negative in comparison to your stance. There's a view that the majority of people want a gas backup for sure. They don't want to be handcuffed by having to go electric only, especially in new builds, but even in rehabs or as units end their life cycle. And so I thought it was quite fascinating. There was
I saw the poll. When I saw it, it said that there were very few people who were actually on gas.
So there's 631 respondents and only 45 had electric heat pumps. I happen to be one of them. I have an electric heat pump. I love my heat pump because I wanted air conditioning. That's the only reason I have my heat pump. It has nothing to do with, greenhouse gases or anything like that. I also have a gas fireplace, propane fireplace as well. So I think my question is, actually one of the comments made on Facebook here was, it's gonna happen anyway. It isn't like the delegation has made this up. It was created by the province and it's happening whether you agree or not. Ms. Russell, you actually said that.
Yeah.
And I have a massive problem with that because we are an elected body here to make the best decisions for 32,000 residents. There's 2 elections coming up before 2030 when this might come in place. There's 2 provincial elections coming up in that time frame, and there's 2 federal elections coming up in that time frame. So that comment, frankly, it offends me, but I think it might be foolish for us to make a decision at any time in the future here at this table without it going to some sort of referendum or major community discussion, because taking away people's rights when it comes to their heating options is foolish. That's sorry, it's not a question this time, that was a comment. Thank you.
Yeah, and I did say that both efficient wood stoves and gas fireplaces are still allowed in terms of the recognition that many of us on the island live in a land of power outages. So I think the province, one of the councillors at Nanaimo as they were having the conversation after they had all their delegations, said his, and I'm not saying this is my theory, but his theory was that the government would like progressive communities who care about climate change to take the lead so that it makes it easier for them when they're implementing it in 2030. And because they know we need to start now. That's why they've given you the power.
Can I just make a comment on that too? So maybe you looked a little earlier at the Facebook poll that there were 3,100 members on my neighborhood Facebook group. And I looked around 4 o'clock today, and there were 3.7 times more people who heated with heat pump, electric heat pump, than with any kind of fossil fuel. So I'm not sure there were much higher numbers.
Yeah, we can go back and forth. I would just caution, I don't want to develop our policy in the municipality based on Facebook polls. That's not to diminish them. I think there's value
Yeah,
in
but
using various tools to get public
True.
input, so I don't want to diminish that at all, but would just want to caution that.
I just wanted to correct
Yeah,
something
of
that
course,
was
yeah.
incorrect.
And I think Councillor Finley had his hand up. I'll let you close, and then I'm going to go to Councillor Toporowski, and I'll go back to you if you have more
Thank you.
questions.
Actually, the numbers I quoted, I took off the page about 20 minutes ago. And over 25% of those that responded, not just on your page, but on Chemainus, Crofton, Duncan, inclusive Maple Bay as well, 27 or 28% are gas. They have gas, and they want gas, and they want to stay gas. So that's just my follow-up to that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I would just point out that the province and what they're giving municipalities the possibility of doing is only about new buildings.
Yeah, thanks for that clarification. Councillor Stash, then Councillor Toporowski, and then Councillor Calia.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you for the presentation. My curiosity is, was that in the Nanaimo presentation, the BC Hydro portion of it, was that a separate document provided to them?
They presented in person
Oh, BC Hydro
at the meeting,
Okay.
as did Fortis.
I just was wondering if council could get that report, and then as well, that presentation, if we can just ensure that that presentation goes to staff, as to follow up with Councillor Justice was saying, that there are works being done to research this, so that that's
It's
a
about
key thing.
about
There's-
2 hours to watch the
Yeah,
the
well,
whole
not to
thing,
watch it,
and
but there is a written report.
their presentation is Fortis was first and BC Hydro was towards the end. So if you want to find it, it's there.
So the reason I bring that up is that's relevant information, not knowing that, not only that is their supply, but also within that supply is the 12% regulated surplus capacity that would still be achieved.
Yeah, the
if we're-
12% is over and above
Yeah,
what they
exactly.
said. Yeah.
So there's capacity built in there. And then as well, I'd just like to thank that in that document, going from the emails we received, the two comments were, we're not gonna have enough power in emails, and then the other comments were, I want a backup in case of those, which seeing now and reading this more, and then you're presenting, and then speaking that we can still have backup heat sources. So those were two of the biggest questions, and those have been answered, so people still have the options, they still have the protections, we're still gonna have the power, but I'd like to, of course, hear from staff on that down the road. And then as someone who spent my entire life working on drilling rigs and on oil rig floors, I understand the shift in the transition. I felt I saw it coming, so that's part of why I made the move in my life. My entire family works in oil and gas, and little things like this aren't gonna be things against them, because we're always gonna need the building blocks of society. So changing in how we utilize them is what this is about. And I didn't really even know about heat pumps till I moved here, and I'm pretty shocked that currently through this winter, and I've shared it publicly before because I'm still blown away with it. My entire house is electric, and my BC Hydro bill for the last 4 months has been $43 per month. In our coldest months this year, my power bill was $88. I live in an 1,800 square foot house, built in 1960, not the newest, most efficient house, but just being smart with my power and having a really high efficient heat pump. My power is extremely affordable, and I'm fortunate to have a heat pump and not baseboard heat, which is inefficient. So I welcome this, and then as well on the side thing is I expanded my business, and the expansion side of the business, that area had natural gas heat in it, And in that new area to heating, I'm paying double now. So we don't even need to talk about, we can pull the whole fossil fuel side about it. In BC, affordability is accomplished more so from electrification than natural gas. So we won't even need to talk about fossil fuels, and is my belief is that in BC with a renewable energy source, it's far more affordable for families and operations of our homes. So that's just personal experience. That's just mine. That isn't statistical or pulled for anything. I was just sharing what I've seen and observed as a resident and as a business owner. So thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Councillor Toporowski and then Councillor Calia.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Jane and Valerie, for coming to present today. You know, I know that there also did an outdoor air quality. Shannon Waters was involved with that too as well. So now we're going to indoor. And I know some of the fears of when people thought they were getting rid of their wood stoves, or we had to get rid of them. That was a big fear in our community, and the cost of replacing something that we already have in our home is another thing. So other things like education on the effects of what this means in our indoor air quality. Also, it made me think about being at an event the other day when they had the gas stove and they turned the fan off so people could talk, right? And then I heard about this and I went, oh my gosh, like, okay. But that it's just about education and personal choice. I think that's another thing too. I think people are fearing that their personal choice will be taken away from them. And that's not what we're saying here. And again, this is just a delegation. So this is just education, and anybody could just apply to come and be a delegation here. So I do thank you for sharing your information. I know I made the switch from, I think we had the gas stove, gas fireplace, and we went to the newer, air efficient, whatever, wood stove, the newer model. And but I'm a sensitive person. I have a very high sensitive and smell and everything, so the smoke was really bugging me. So we've gone to heat pump. But it was because of the rebates that the province was giving out. And I think those are other things where people are fearing that they're going to be left behind because they're not going to be able to afford to make these changes. And I think that's what the fear that I'm hearing from our constituents right now. But if we can advocate to, you know, keep those choices open for everybody to make those changes. And, you know, I was sad to see people on the mainland and probably in our here in the valley too, that live in apartment buildings that can't get the heat pump, if someone could afford to buy one, they weren't allowed to install one in their apartment because there's regulations with the landlords and stuff like that. So
And
yeah.
there are places that are working on changing those. There's been articles written on that, and there wasn't time in 10 minutes to go into the equity and affordability piece, but I agree it's really important.
Yeah, so I know I just think that some of our constituents feel that their choice is being taken away, and that's not what we're doing. We're just talking about options, and it's a transition. So again, if you know, when I'm looking for a new car, my car's still pretty good. I'm looking to change that, and so what kind of car I'm saving, right? So you have to save too, but most people don't have that choice of making that save to make that big purchase and make those changes. Again, I think of looking at the overall construction of new buildings and whatnot, where we are going to that option through our policies and procedures through North Cowichan. And again, like the report will be coming to us, I think, did you say October? Something like that. Anyways, but I think that's, you know, just some of the things that I've been hearing, and even our email's been flooded with a lot of worry about what that's going to look like. So thank you again.
Councillor Calia to close.
Thank you, Mayor.
I just have a couple of questions, and one is the supplementary heat that people are having. I mean, if you don't install a gas stove in your house or some other supplementary heat, and I know you said earlier that you're okay with having efficient wood stoves, and I have one myself. And if it hadn't been for that, because we had power outage at our house when we had the big windstorm, and our power was out for 7 days. And so thank goodness we had that to cook on and to heat our home. But I'm worried about people in the valley who, you know, there's a lot of different kinds of builds, and those are not able to put in a highly efficient wood stove. So the only other option really is to have a gas stove, and the ones that are in nowadays are extremely efficient. In our last home that we built, we had two of them in there, and I love my heat pump, and that's the first thing we did when we bought a 1974 house was install a heat pump because it's highly efficient. And you know, like Councillor Finley said, you've got air conditioning in the summertime. But that being said, in a place like the Cowichan Valley, with windstorms that we get on a regular basis every year, the power is definitely going to go out. And there hasn't been a year yet since we moved into our home that the power has not gone out for at least a day or two. If we accept this step code, can individual homeowners still, you know, install a supplementary heat that will keep them warm in the wintertime and from freezing to death?
Well, the options in the step code are to have a wood stove, and they're not going to take away an existing wood stove because it doesn't it's not that detailed. You can have a wood stove, or you can have a gas fireplace, and we're just talking about new builds. So anybody who has that now is not going to lose that. And I think that probably the practical reality is if there's a gas line going up your block and you wanted to install a gas fireplace, that wouldn't be too hard. But if you don't already have a gas line in your neighborhood, they're not going to bring in a gas line for a gas fireplace, I'm guessing. But in general, the other thing that is really coming is improved battery storage, and batteries. Like I have a wood stove, I have solar panels on my house, and I have a heat pump and electricity. But what I'm really looking for with what you're talking about are frequent power outages is I'm now consulting with the people about the updated batteries that will run my freezer and the things that matter while you're waiting for the power to come back on. So I think that what I've been reading is the technology is there. I haven't finished my research, so I don't know as much about it as I like, but battery backup for an electric home is coming and will just get more and more affordable.
Did you have another question? All right, thank you. All right, well, thank you, Ms. Kiltham, Ms. Russell, for the informative presentation. And as our staff indicated, we're going to be getting a report on the net zero step code in the coming weeks.
I look forward to that, and thank you very much for having us and for this conversation.
Thank you. All right, our next item on the agenda is public input on agenda items, and I do have 5 people here signed up for the sign-in sheet. I just would stress for everyone before we get into public input, I know there's some pretty strong views with regards to the notion of the net zero step code, and just would encourage everyone to be respectful of your comments and recognize that we've got many different views here in our community. Our longstanding practice here at the municipalities, even if someone gives comments that you think sound wonderful and you want to clap and whistle for them, we generally discourage that, because the concern is that if there's a lot of applause, say for one individual's comments, that it could intimidate others from getting up to the microphone and offering their comments. So I believe staff, we're going to IT staff, we're going to put a slide up on the screen here, just indicating what the process is for virtual attendees, and while that's taking place, I'm going to start with the in-person attendees who have signed up for the on the public input sheet. So the first person I'd like to invite up, Joseph Enslow. And Mr. Enslow, if you could state your name and address, and yeah, as you're aware, we've got a 3-minute maximum for public input.
Right. So, good afternoon, Council. Joseph Enslow here, Lane Road, speaking here today on behalf of COPE and its members. It's regarding the Delegation 5.1, the sales pitch to Council to restrict or ban natural gas. So I use that word on purpose, a sales pitch. That's exactly what it is. The scientific portion of the delegation uses an approach that's called meta-analysis or literature review. It's a pyramid consisting of a study that is compiled of studying other studies. The other studies are not, and were not intended to ban or restrict natural gas. They were exactly that, a study of it. If you were to review the actual studies done with instrumentations in the home, you'll find their conclusions contain the following. There are no control groups used. They could not source comprehensive selection of range hoods or ventilation systems. They did not include factors such as the year that the home was built, the building type, the layout of kitchen, etc. As a result, their results were simply more studies were needed to draw an actual conclusion. As you can see, these studies did not draw the same conclusions that we were just led to believe by the delegation. They were merely studies of emissions, not a sales guide to push climate change hysteria. The presentation we witnessed is a biased review, intended only to support the demands of Council. BC has an emissions roadmap for 2030. The BC Energy Regulator is part of that roadmap. They have committed their focus on removing 45% of methane emissions. How? They're focused on pneumatic devices, equipment leaks, compressor seals, storage tanks, and surface casing vents, not by banning or restricting natural gas. I see they also reference Victoria and Saanich in their presentation. These areas started their process to the current state almost 6 years ago, including builders, contractors, and the community in their decision. The demand by this delegation states that we should try to fast-track this within just 12 short months. They have pressured your heartstrings by bringing up health concerns or wildfires. Our local hospital is not reporting anything withstanding regarding methane exposure cases. Residents here are switching to natural gas because they typically see a savings of $200 to $700 per month after converting to natural gas. Remember a couple months ago when Council considered foregoing the salary bump at about $150 a month? One councillor in this very room stated the $150 loss would cause them detrimental consequences to their financial situation. Residents are looking for ways to loosen the financial noose on their necks. They aren't looking for more government restrictions and regulations pulling money from their bank accounts. I urge the Council to consider the broader strokes of what this request actually is. It's not just an absolute pin drop of emission savings for North Cowichan. It's a crushing blow to the confidence of builders, contractors, and homeowners who will feel yet another restriction and squeeze on their lives, all in the name of climate change hysteria. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now turn to the next speaker, Adriana Richards. Ms. Richards, if you could state your name and address, and again, 3 minutes.
Before you start the timer,
Yeah.
I just had surgery on my mouth, so I'm going to be speaking a little bit slower. I hope you can offer me a little bit of grace there because I'm speaking weirdly.
Sure.
Thanks. Hello, Mayor and Council. I'm speaking on item 5.1. I'm speaking on behalf of the members of COPE who are fiercely opposed to removing natural gas installations in our municipality. This is another poverty policy. Citizens should have every right to access affordable energy. At this rate, at the rate of BC Hydro increases, many can barely, if at all, afford to heat their homes. Fortis will not hook up for emergencies only. I spoke with them today. That is not, it won't make them money. Fortis does not produce gas. They are the infrastructure to transport the gas, and in the case of Kelowna, they service both the gas and the hydro, which gave them the great opportunity to run diagnostics on what it would cost to power Kelowna purely with electricity, and found it would cost billions to convert. They would also have to supplement the grid by purchasing higher carbon energy from Alberta. In 2019, another Guidehouse study was done, and it consisted of looking at 3 scenarios: 1, going full electric; 2, natural gas and electric; 3, business as usual. The study concluded that 2, natural gas and electric would be the lowest carbon emissions. One of the reasons for number 2 scenario is that 12 years ago, Fortis embarked on helping create infrastructure to capture methane from curbside pickup, wastewater, and farm waste. The natural gas that is now brought to buildings allows consumers to pick from 0 to 100% renewable natural gas. Fortis has applied to BC Utilities Commission to have all new installations 100% RNG. There is no such thing as gas made from actual fossils, and it looks like we're well on our way to an amazing future converting our waste to energy. Wouldn't it be truly in line with the circular economy to collaborate with another municipality or even build our own small infrastructure as the CRD did? We could make the municipality money by turning our own organics and roadside waste into RNG to sell to the system, save the carbon costs of transporting waste away, as well as contribute to the island becoming more power independent, rather than relying 100% on power lines that import power from a grid that contains coal power and other non-water powered inputs. Our community charter doesn't actually give you the right to eliminate choice for your constituents. So what this does is just make it next to impossible for a builder to hook up gas to his new build because of cost and policies around heat sources. You should all have a letter in your inboxes from Carmen, who is the Customer Relations to Fortis BC. She will also be at the September 18th UBCM and has offered any member of council to meet one-on-one. I hope you take her up on that before you come into any conclusions based on inconclusive studies and emotional hyperbole. Please do not follow other municipalities off the bridge without consulting with actual experts and real data. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll now invite Sheila Paul. Ms. Paul, if you could state your name and address.
Yes, we own property just down the road from the mayor, and I have edited now my letter to council after sitting here listening, and so I'm hoping I don't mess it up too much here. This is to do with number 5, delegation. So this particular delegation takes everything to another level, to be sure, and is of most grave concern. And from what I just heard, I should be so afraid, but I'm not. All right? I don't live in fear. I haven't lived in fear and I don't live in fear, but it was very difficult to sit here and listen. And I'm trying to behave, Mayor. I'm trying to read out, but I edited what I wrote here now. So you've heard that there is a growing number of your constituents that are fully aware of where this idea to ban natural gas is planning to take our community as a whole. To be sure, it is only the beginning. And you will hear much more that they want to ban, and that includes wood stoves. I have seen the plans, and eventually wood stoves will be phased out. That's the long-term plan. So to insinuate all future buildings must abide is not something council should ever take lightly, and without an in-person public hearing where all citizens are invited to share concerns. And I want to compare this to what happened around the racetrack and the 2 hearings at the Cowichan Theatre. Considering what's happened since then, on a scale of 1 to 10, this delegation, it's 100, okay? So, because I'm going to run out of time, as an elected official, oh, and the referendum word, thank you for the councillor that mentioned that. That's what should be done on this. As an elected official to represent all North Cowichan citizens, you have a moral obligation and duty to ensure all voices are heard, not a select few that claim they speak for the majority. They do not. And a public health officer joining and aligning, I know she's not here, but joining and aligning with groups that clearly do not represent all citizens, and stressing children, that's very concerning to me, because asthma is caused by many other factors. There are a lot of attributing factors. So I've run out of time, but I wanna know Since when did the natural gas become the boogeyman? And in elementary school, if we can recall a carbon cycle, how life is formed, how we all eat.
Ms. Paul, right time. I give you
yeah.
a couple more seconds to wrap up.
So
We're
I'll
at
just,
time.
I'll just leave it with this. It's not going to make a lot of sense, but you got my email, all the council. Our future depends on how far you are willing to allow this delegation's idea to go. Thank you.
Great, thank you. The next speaker on the list is David Pink. Mr. Pink, if you could state your, come out of the podium, state your name and address. And again, it's a 3-minute maximum for public input.
My name's David Pink and I live on Waters Road in Duncan. And like the speaker before me, I've kind of had to edit some of my comments because they were already talked about. But I am going to not edit one of them, which is my understanding of the research I've done is BC Hydro is in no way capable of supporting an electric-only society. They just don't have the power. And they don't even have the future power because they don't have enough, even with the Site C dam being built. I also take some offense to the fear tactics being used by the delegation. But my question, this is a rhetorical question, but are we expected to purchase heat pumps that are made in China, who buys in order to drive their industry, they're buying natural gas and coal from the province of British Columbia? Why don't we just keep the natural gas here and use it? As far as the forest fire thing is concerned, I've done a lot of research around this over the years as well. The watershed issues are more than most, are a result of the rape and pillage of the forestry lands on a continual basis that feed the watersheds that go into the Cook Island and Cowichan River and other rivers on Vancouver Island and in British Columbia. And the other reason for fire issues is the fact that there's a provincial law that says forestry companies must spray Roundup in order to wipe out the deciduous trees that grow in the forested areas. And it's those deciduous trees that since the beginning of time in this province and other places have caused or created the natural fire break to stop forest fires from burning. So if you take them out of the picture and all you've got is millions of acres of Douglas fir trees, you're not going to stop any fires. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Pink. I'll now move on to our last in-person speaker before turning to the virtual attendees. I've got Paul O'Rourke. Mr. O'Rourke, if you could come up to the podium, state your name and address.
Thank you, Council. Well, my name is Paul O'Rourke. I live in on Chemainus Road in Chemainus. I would also like to speak to you about the 5.1 delegation. I've spent my entire life as what I consider an eco-warrior. You'll find my name on the incorporation board of an eco-village in Shawnigan Lake, our eco-village on Baldy Mountain Road, and also a sustainable communities development co-op. I'm passionate about sustainability. I drive an electric car, I have a heat pump, I'm doing all those things. I find the delegation's presentation offensive, particularly offensive because it presents as fact things that are still very, very questionable. They made a presentation that claims the science is solved and that this is a no-brainer, that this is happening. In my 20, 30 years experience working towards sustainability and livable communities, I've come to realize that this is not at all the case. I'm so frustrated with this whole concept. I fully agree with you. Batteries and electricity is a great way to go. So tell me then why the rules make it impossible to actually do. For example, I went to set up a small co-op with my neighbours because I didn't have the space to put the solar panels up. So between my neighbour who had some space and we could pool our funds and we were going to put some panels up and some storage and share the power between us. But that's illegal because I'm not allowed to do that. So tell me how that, oh no, don't, it's rhetorical. So we're making these claims that we're going to be making changes that are here to help us with our environment. But I'm very frustrated that the changes that are being asked for are not local changes. They're not for the people in this valley. They've come from an external source. Everything that I refer to is about global
Mr.
issues.
Rourke, I just encourage you to focus your input on council,
Not the
on
delegation?
the delegation. Focus it
Okay,
on
okay.
us. This is your
So-
opportunity to speak to us, not to the delegation.
Understood. Okay. Well, I was here actually to speak about that delegation because I'm so concerned at the misrepresentation of fact that I perceive that delegation to be. So I would really encourage you. COPE has some fantastic resources, and I really, really appreciate the council members here who have said this is a democracy. The people of this valley don't want this rule. The people of this valley want to be able to continue heating their homes the way they choose. And it is draconian, and it's not your right to tell me how I can heat my home. You can tell me how I can not pollute. You can tell me how I can not harm others. But if I choose to heat my home and not pollute, it's none of your business how I do it. No offense intended, but it's really not. For example,
Mr. Rourke, you're at time.
I'm out of time. All right. Well, thank you for listening.
Thank you for your input. I'll now move on to the virtual attendees, and I know our IT staff had the instructions up on the screen at the start of public input, so I'll turn to IT staff and ask if any of the virtual attendees have their hands raised.
We've refreshed the lobby and there are no hands raised.
All right, thank you. We can now move on through the agenda to bylaws. The first bylaw, item 7.1. Over to you, Ms. Martina.
Okay, so towing and vehicle impound bylaw number 3923 and fees and charges amendment bylaw number 3921 received first three readings on August 16th. If towing and vehicle impound bylaw number 3923 is adopted, it will authorize the removal of RVs, trailers, and vehicles parked unlawfully in North Cowichan and establish the rules and responsibilities that towing companies must adhere to, the collection of impoundment fees, and release and/or disposal of RVs, trailers, and vehicles. If fees and charges amendment bylaw number 3921 is adopted, it will amend the $50 towing fee and the $5 impoundment daily fee so that the actual costs incurred by North Cowichan during the removal of trailers, RVs, and other vehicles parked illegally may be collected. The recommendation is that council adopt towing and vehicle impound bylaw number 3923-2023 and fees and charges amendment bylaw number 3921-2023.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Martineau. We've discussed this at length already. Do I have a mover and a second for adoption? Moved by Councillor Callio, second by Councillor Stash. Any discussion? All in favor? And opposed? Motion carries. Item 7.2. Back to you, Ms. Martineau.
Okay, so sewer services user fee amendment bylaw number 3926 is before council for first three readings. The bylaw proposes to amend sewer services bylaw number 2964 by deleting the provision related to the inclusion of user fees on property tax bills and moving the provisions related to fees for excess discharge of wastewater, invoicing for sewer fees, and unpaid user fees to the fees and charges bylaw number 3784. The recommendation is that council give first, second, and third readings to sewer user fee amendment bylaw number 3926, 2023.
Do we have a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Justice, seconded by Councillor Callio. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor? And opposed? Motion carries. I'd just like to take this opportunity to mention the gallery. You're more than welcome to stay throughout the duration of the meeting, but you're also, if anyone wants to get out of here, please feel free to leave when you like. It won't offend council. All right, we'll now move on to reports. Item 8.1, Cowichan Sportsplex Fieldhouse. Over to you, Mr. Swaby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The purpose of this staff report is to review tenders received for the construction of the Cowichan Sportsplex Fieldhouse and consider options to fund the budget shortfall. Staff's recommendation is that Council 1, approve the relocation of an existing capital funds to the Sportsplex Fieldhouse project to cover the budget shortfall, and 2, authorize staff to enter into a contract with Eccleston Construction to construct the Sportsplex Fieldhouse for their submitted bid of $1,999,766.04, subject to the cost reduction negotiation.
Councillor Calio?
I'd just like to, put a motion, I just put a motion in to, go with, referring to the cow, to a future meeting of the cow.
All right, motion to refer to future cow. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Finlay. Any discussion on the referral? Councillor Manhouse.
Yeah, I'm gonna support this motion, Councillor Calio's motion, because I don't think we have enough information on this. We don't have any floor plans, we don't have nothing, we don't have, like, what are we voting on? What are we gonna be voting for? What's a contingency? Is there any contingency? There's nothing in here for us to say, okay, we can spend $2 million, giving this company $2 million.
If there's no further question from council, I can turn to staff to get some clarity on this.
I'm sorry, Ms. Martineau?
Yeah, I can give you a minute if you wanna.
No, go ahead.
Oh, just the question from Councillor Manhouse was more detail on the building design and, detail on the cost.
Oh, absolutely. At a Cal meeting, a future Cal meeting, we can have a discussion with council.
So
we may have to do it in close. We'll have to evaluate what's appropriate.
Yeah, that's no problem, and because also this is, you know, the $612,000 not including contingency for the shortfall. What is the contingency gonna be like? Is that, you know, so we don't have any details, so.
Okay, so moved and seconded for a future cow, and I know Mr. Swaby staff are getting close to finalizing the agenda for next week's cow, so if we go a future cow, it could be next week or it could be the October cow.
We'll try and get it on next week. I think it's important.
All right. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. If there's no further discussion, I'll call the question. All in favor? And opposed? Motion carries. We now move on to item 8.2. Back to you, Mr. Swaby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is purpose of this report is to consider a request from the Cowichan Valley Regional District Board for municipal input on a potential of a regional planning service. After review, staff's recommendation is that council in principle support the potential establishment of a regional planning function, provided the function's primary purpose is to develop, implement, and administer a regional growth strategy for the Cowichan region.
Councillor Justice.
I would move the recommended option.
It's a move, seconded by Councillor Stash. Any discussion? Councillor Finlay, then Councillor Manhouse.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I have a problem with regional planning, as it says in the report. You know, planning is a divisive topic. And, you know, how we see growth strategies implemented that work for us here in North Cowichan may not work for Ladysmith, Lake Cowichan, or Mill Bay. You know, it's one of those things where we really can't afford to divert staff resources on this when we have some pretty large projects underway here in North Cowichan alone over the next few years, plus the additional costs can't be borne by our taxpayers. They're already stretched to the limit as it is. And as a side note, we should just amalgamate and be done with it. Thanks.
Councillor Manhouse and Councillor Justice.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I know we talked about this at the regional table also, and I did support the regional table, and I will support this now because it's in principle only until we get some more information and a proper report from staff. Because in principle, I will be supporting this.
Thank you, Councillor Manhouse. Councillor Justice.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just because Councillor Finlay raised it, I mean, there are some good points that he's making about, you know, often it is good to plan at a neighborhood level or a municipal level, but there's plenty of things where regional planning is actually critical. Issues that span local government boundaries, such as climate change and biodiversity protection, supporting agriculture, and many more things. So, in addition, I think, you know, given growth pressures on the region as a whole and issues of water resources and infrastructure deficit, it's also critical that in certain cases and in certain ways we manage growth regionally. So, leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor Justice. I'd perhaps just add for council that pursuing a regional growth strategy is a long-standing objective here at the municipality, not just with our most recent OCP, but going back to the 2011 official community plan as well. And I would also note that the Cowichan Valley, despite, you know, all the talk about us being one of the more environmentally focused communities in BC, we are the to my knowledge, the only regional district of mid-southern Vancouver Island, the lower mainland, and the Okanagan without a regional growth strategy, which when I mention that to mayors in other parts of the province, they can't believe that we don't have a regional growth strategy. It does create challenges as well for us as we're trying to realize our own objectives with regards to growth and development in our community, especially within our designated growth centers, to have so much of this development activity out in the electoral areas, which are largely unserviced and don't have the infrastructure to support much of that development. So for all those reasons, we'll be supporting the motion. I do have some concerns about creating a function before we've actually have a full commitment at the regional board to pursue a regional growth strategy, but appreciate the recommendation from staff that makes our support in principle, as Councillor Manas pointed out, conditional on that commitment for a regional growth strategy from the Cowichan Valley Regional District Board. So there's no further comments. Perhaps I'll call the question. All in favor? And opposed? Councillor Finley opposed. Motion carries. We'll now move on to item 8.3. Back to you, Mr. Swaby.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is regarding the Chemainus Festival of Mural Society's request. And the purpose is to consider relocating the Three Generations sculpture in Chemainus to an alternative location. Recommendation from staff is that council authorize relocating the Three Generations sculpture from 9780 Willow Street to the existing northern structure at Waterwheel Park.
Councillor Stash.
Thank you, Worship. I'll be supporting the motion as this is being the liaison on the Festival of Murals Committee. This was actually the location I suggested to them as the owner. The new owners had bought in the old bakery property and are revitalizing it. This was seemed like a more suiting place rather than being on a private property. I felt, especially being that it's regarding the cultural significance of the First Nations territory it's on, and then the pre-existing carving shed that exists there. I asked them that it's probably best suited to put it out in a public place with the municipality and also engage, most notably because of the teachings and speakings that Elder Florence James has shared, that I asked them to also reach out to the Penelka tribe as well in regards to what they would like to see for more future uses. So with that, this site made most sense, and I asked Festival of Murals that they'd reach out to the municipality. And now that I see the report, I'm pleased to see it here, and as I said, I make the motion to support it.
Great. We've got a mover. Do we have a seconder? Moved by seconded by Councillor Justice. Any further discussion? I'll call the question then. All in favor? And opposed? Motion carries. We now move on to item 8.4.
Mr. Mayor, oh, I'm sorry.
Yep, carry on.
This is regarding the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation in 2023, and the purpose is to seek council support for a grant and aid for the Macola Housing Society to assist with the 2023 Every Child Matters Walk on October 2nd, 2023. Staff's recommendation is that council approve a certain amount in grant and aid to the Macola Housing Society and to support the 2023 Every Child Matters Walk to be held October 2nd, 2023. And I believe there's approximately $10,000, $12,000 in the fund that we have for this type of support.
Thank you, Mr. Swaby. For council's benefit, I'll just note that we have provided grants twice previously for this event. So a couple of years ago, we provided a $2,000 grant and then a $3,000 grant last year. And discussing internally with staff, we thought perhaps because there isn't an actual amount requested, we could offer $3,000, which we did last year. But I know Councillor Toporowski has been in discussions with the organizers, and just wanted to turn it over to Councillor Toporowski to ask if you had any suggestions with regards to the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, and thank you for the report and for the updated funding. I am in full support of this. There were multiple schools that attended last year. It was a great way for the education for the children to hear from the community members that were affected by residential school. And yeah, so I'm in full support of this, and who knows, maybe it's going to be bigger this year because it seems to keep growing and growing. And I would like to make the recommendation of supporting the $3,000. That's.
Thank you, Councillor Toporowski. Do we have a seconder? Second by Councillor Stash. Any discussion? Councillor Manhas?
Council Toporowski made the motion of 3,000. I was ready to go up to, I had my notes, to go up to 3,500, but 3,000 is okay. Because we got to do 12,500. We give them $1,000, $2,000, then we end up $1,000. I don't want to go up another 1,000 because then, you know, every year, but $500, I'd be willing to go up to $3,500.
Councillor Callio?
I'd like to make this suggestion, and I agree totally with Councillor Manhas that we raise it to $3,500.
All right. Move, treat that as a mover and a seconder to amend the motion to 3,500.
I support.
All right. So, and all those in favor of the amendment and opposed, motion carries. So on the main motion then, which is now 3,500, all in favor and opposed, motion carries. All right, we move on to the last report, the accessibility action plan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is to introduce the draft accessibility action plan and public feedback mechanism. And first, I should just acknowledge this would not have been completed in the incredibly tight timeframes that the province set for having this. This is a mandated requirement of local government. Without our CFO leading this project, and she got this thing through in the time required. So thank you to Ms. Saldera for keeping this one on track. Staff's recommendation is that Council 1 endorse the Accessibility Action Plan as attached to the September 6, 2023 report from the General Manager of Corporate Services, and 2, direct staff to create a page on the North Cowichan's public engagement site to gather feedback from the public on the Accessibility Action Plan. And Mr. Mayor, I just want to point out that this is the start. This plan will be a living document that will have many iterations and decisions by Council at future budget meetings in order to implement the recommendations.
Great. Councillor Finley is the chair of the committee. I'd like to provide you with the opportunity to move the recommendation. Moved. All right. Seconded by Councillor Callio. Councillor Stash.
Just a side topic comment, but relative to that, after Councillor Finley's first meeting, I read through the meeting minutes and I saw the attached report was in the first committee meeting minutes, and the timing was such that I had a member of the public in Chemainus reach out to me about the new washrooms and asking about was there going to be accessibility access for the washrooms, and I suggested they actually go through the committee, and I just wanted to confer that going forward, that would be the right place to send people with those type of questions rather than a staff member. Would we send them to the accessibility committee for correspondence?
Mr. Mayor, we will have, at this point, Ms. Soldera is the contact person that people should start the process of discussions with, and that would be appropriate. We'll decide how we continue on with that.
Perfect, thank you.
Councillor Finley, and then Councillor Toporowski.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I am the chair of this this committee. It's a fascinating committee to be chair of, and the staff that are involved in this are outstanding, lovely people that make it very, very easy to chair this committee. So that's a shout out to the staff for that. As Mr. Swaby says, it is a living document. I actually have a couple comments going forward on this, so to hear the public comments and feedback, I think is going to be fantastic, and I look forward to it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Toporowski.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the report. My question was for the communication plan. It says you'll do public feedback through Cowichan or connect northcowichan.ca, and you'll have a mapping tool to allow people to put a pin in the areas that they feel need improvement or whatnot. So I'm just wondering, is that going to be available in-person meeting or feedback for people that don't have access to computer?
Ms. Soldera or Ms. Floden? Go ahead, Ms. Soldera.
So at the moment, our public engagement, we hope to get feedback on the plan itself, including the opportunity. We know that people really want to tell us about areas in the built environment that are not accessible. So we're starting with the Connect page, but we have been discussing ways to engage people, for instance, at our recreation centers and in other places where people frequent in order to get more feedback. So we do anticipate we will be seeking lots of feedback throughout the process, but we're anticipating starting with the Connect page.
Yeah, Paula.
Thank you, Ms. Aldera. I know when I went to the grocery store in Chemainus at the old 49th, now it's the Country Grocer, there was a lady having trouble finding the edge of the sidewalk, because it just goes straight down, but she said just getting older and not having that visibility the same. And I noticed in our plan down Shemanis Road, where a new build, there were, where the crosswalks were, there were actual bumps, like for visually impaired. So I wasn't sure if that's gonna include, existing businesses and talking to them about that as well. Thank you.
Mr. Swaber, Ms. Saldera, when you answer that.
We would definitely encourage feedback from anyone with respect to any spaces. I find that I feel very fortunate that we actually do have a person with some visual impairment, a blind person who's participating on the committee, because they bring a very different perspective than those of us who are sighted, and so it's really helpful to get feedback from people. As I say, we know that there are North Cowichan is huge, right? And so there's many sidewalks that are not conducive to accessibility in many different ways. So accessibility for people with mobility issues, with sight issues, with people with sensory issues. There's just so many different ways of accessibility that I'm a very privileged person, so I don't think of all of these things, and so I'm learning so much from this committee, and we hope to get lots of feedback from the community about, and from business owners and from everyone, but as Mr. Swaby said, all of making any changes will come with a cost, a price tag attached to it, so these will be considered throughout budget deliberations, and the plan will continue to be updated for many years to come.
Councillor Stash?
Your Worship, if I could just share a piece of information, it's relevant to what Councillor Toporowski just brought up. In light of, this was on the meeting agenda, I stopped in Cowichan Neighborhood House Association to speak to them about accessibility, because at the same time today, the province just released funding to nonprofits to improve their accessibility and for disabled people of, I believe it's $500 million, and nonprofits in North Cowichan can apply for up to $45,000. For projects, and I actually subsequently also sent it to Cowichan Trail Stewards on top of sending it to Cowichan Neighborhood House, because both of those are nonprofits that can benefit from the grant. So maybe that's, I don't know what the window is, but maybe even that grant could be on the topic of the next accessibility committee if it's still within the window.
Thanks for the suggestion. Okay, we've got a motion on the floor, so moved and seconded. If there's no further discussion, I'd like to call the question. All those in favor and opposed? Motion carries. There's no notices of motion, no unfinished or postponed business. So we can now move on to new business, and there's 3 items that we pulled from the consent agenda. So the first item is 2.2.5. Councillor Justice, I believe you pulled this, and I have a comment myself.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a letter from Canadian Bavarian Millwork and Lumber Limited, requesting a letter of support with respect to a application that they're submitting around production streamlining and manufacturing jobs. And it seems totally reasonable to me that we'd be supporting our local businesses and industry in this way. So I wonder, Mr. Mayor, if you've got a suggestion with respect to this. I mean, would it be reasonable for council to authorize you to write a letter on the municipality's behalf, or what do you think works?
Yeah, I've already been in contact with the business owner and indicated I could do this subject to council's approval, so hoping you will allow me to do this because I have committed to it already.
Well, in that case.
Subject to council's approval, so I was clear to point that out. I do have a resolution I've worked on with, that's provided me from staff, and it's that council authorized the mayor to provide George Warnell, Canadian Bavarian Millwork and Lumber Limited, a letter of support to include with their grant application under the BC Manufacturing Jobs Fund program. So I'd like to move that. Councillor Justice, moved by Councillor Finley. Any discussion? No discussion, all in favor? And opposed? Motion carries, and I believe there's another business that is going to be requesting a similar support letter for an application under that program, so I will be bringing that to council the next meeting. The next item I have here is item 2.2.6, which I pulled, and I'd like to ask staff if they could offer some some comments on the request from this resident and the possibility of council granting permission for after-hours access to Chemainus Lake. Is it, Mr. Pukish, were you going to comment on this?
Yes, Mayor, thank you for that opportunity. Yeah, I've reached out to our environmental services team, and we have no real concerns environmentally about moving this forward. Where our concerns are, should council endorse the access, is that we'll need to work with the applicant on their safety plan and any associated liability risks with them entering into that facility after hours. So should you council endorse that, that's something that we'd be willing to explore with the applicant.
Great, thanks for that. I do have a suggested resolution for council that I can read out.
Mr. Mayor, we've done some editing to the motion, so if you want, I can read it out for you.
Yeah, that would be easier. Please do.
Okay, so that council authorizes the after-hours use of Chemainus Lake Park for harvesting American bullfrogs for personal consumption, and directs staff to work with Michael Inge, I don't know if I pronounced it correctly, to execute an access agreement which addresses safety and liability risks prior to harvesting.
Resolution moved by Councillor Manhas, seconded by Councillor Finley. Councillor Manhas, to comment?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, would this be only for Mr. Inge and not, say if somebody else comes up, says, I want to after hours access too, would they have to come back to council and?
Yeah, my understanding is just for this one individual, but I will turn to the corporate officer for clarification.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Kelly.
In follow-up to Councillor Manas's comment, could we not make it worded so that, because I mean, this American bullfrog is it's a bane of fish in our small little lakes, and I noticed that they're also up at our Crofton Lake, and so I think that the more people involved, the better. Thank you.
I'll turn to staff, although I assume if there's a bunch of people come forward, we could approve them in batches in future council meetings, but. Mr. Swaby, would you like to weigh in on this?
Well, I think we would rather evaluate each one as they come forward and ensure there's no questions that we need to source out, and we'd come forward to council. So my recommendation is to stay with the current process.
All right, we've got a motion on the floor, moved and seconded. All in favor and opposed? Motion carries. Next item under new business that was pulled from the consent agenda is item 2.2.7. Councillor Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a letter from Peter Russlin with respect to requesting council to lobby against the clearing of forests for vineyards as a farming use. And this letter actually raises a couple of pretty interesting points, and I mean, despite its ALR status and our lack of jurisdiction over those things, it's an interesting question to ask. Is it in the best interest of our community to convert land that is currently forested and with a pretty rare forest type that we're interested in conserving and regenerating into farmland? And secondarily, at a time when we are concerned with food security, should we be using our limited farmable land for wine production? I mean, just the vision of Cowichan as a wine producing region with related tourism is a beautiful vision. Whereas for other people, cutting down forests to grow what essentially is a monoculture is tantamount to raising the Amazon rainforest to raise beef cattle. So, for some it's a beautiful vision. For others, it represents the worst that we're doing to this planet. Anyway, one of the questions that occurred to me was, is this a big, the conversion of, I guess the question is how much of our ALR land is currently forested? And because of course it's not even an issue if we don't have very much forested ALR land. So I was hoping that Mr. Conway might speak to whether or not that's a question that we can easily answer.
Councillor Justice, I'll give Mr. Conway an opportunity to weigh in, but I want to suggest the possibility of referring this to our Agricultural Advisory Committee, recognizing that we haven't yet formally established it, but it is coming in the coming months.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Conway, over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
I would just suggest that that gives us time also to start thinking about the mapping, and Mr. Conway will have more information, I'm sure, on how much work this is.
Yes, I did make some preliminary inquiries about this with our GIS mapping team, and it does seem that there's a way to do it. There's a few questions and you know, a few things to sort out before we could undertake that analysis, but it looks like it can be done without a huge amount of staff time to do that. So we'll proceed with that if that's council's desire, and report back once we have the information.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Conway.
Sure. And maybe once we hear back, that would be a good time to consider a motion to.
For referral.
For referral.
All right. Okay, Councillor Finley, over to you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. My comment is more about it's private land. It's the landowner's property in this case that Mr. Rusland is talking about. What they do with the land when it's zoned correctly is none of our business. And it is a beautiful, what do you call it? A beautiful thought. Vision. Thank you for tourism and vineyards in this valley, and I think it's fantastic. And I'd be interested to see how this goes forward at an agricultural committee. But I just think it's not our place, regardless of how much we love the trees. And most people didn't know that property was ALR. Most people didn't even know that property existed until it was cut down and turned into partial vineyards. So I just think that's what I think. Thank you.
All right. If we can move on now to question period, I'd invite any members of the gallery, and then I'll turn to the virtual attendees to ask if you have any questions for council, and could step up to the podium, state your name and address, and just remind everyone that this is question period. It's not time for statements or public input. That comes at the start of the meeting. So I'll ask if there are any attendees in the gallery who'd like to provide public input. No. Sorry. Yeah, now I'm confusing it. Thank you. If there's any questions, say not public input, question period. I don't see any members of the gallery here, so I will turn to IT staff and ask if there are any virtual attendees with their hands raised.
There are no virtual attendees.
All right, that concludes our regular council meeting, so I'll declare this meeting adjourned. And as council knows, we didn't finish our special council meeting in close, so if we could get back in there by 5 to 7. 10